Good morning, Facebook. Today we'll be working on a 2019 F150. We'll be doing the Alpharex headlight kit. It's the whole assembly with the LED option, along with the DRL switchbacks and things like that. I didn't take off the headlights yet, just because I don't want to scratch it or damage it. But I will go ahead and start taking off the old assembly and show you how to do that. First, you'll need to take off this little cover. I would suggest to have one of these to get these little tabs or locks, or you can use a flathead. All you do is lift up a little bit of it and kind of work it in. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to take it off with a flathead, but if you have one of these, I would suggest to have that. Makes it a little bit easier. And just like that, comes off. I'll do another one. There's like a little notch on both corners. That's kind of where this inserts to. As soon as you get that, that's just how you take it off. And just go ahead and take this one off, this one, this one, this one. Basically everything that's holding that. Once you get that out, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, once you have everything removed, just go ahead and take that off and place it in a safe location, that way you don't accidentally step on it. And let's move on to the next step. Okay, for this step, you will take off 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter. Also, you will need to use a flathead to kind of get this little tab off. Just kind of work it in and out, or back and forth. Make sure you unplug this. All it is just a push tab, and pull it up and get it out of the way. As you can see, it's kind of starting to loosen out. And let's move on to the next step. Alright, for this step, to take this cover off, goes all the way to the other side. All you have to do is take off the 7 millimeters, one right here and one right here, and same goes to the other side, and this whole assembly will just pop off. Okay, to get the headlights off, you'll have 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, and there's also this little push clip deal. That's what it looks like. Just pop that off. Also, you'll remove a 10 mil, 10 mil, inner 10 mil, a 10 mil, and this one's a weird one, which is an 8. So just be prepared for that as well. This is the only thing that's holding it right now, but I wanted to show you where the bolts are. Once you get that out, pull the whole headlight assembly out and place it on a spot where it'll be safe. That way you don't accidentally step on it or kick it. And we'll move on to the next step. Alright, to get that off, this is going to be tight since it's the first time being taken off. It will sound like something's breaking, but I promise you it's not. Once you get all that out, I don't know if you see all these 3 tabs. That's the only thing that's holding the top. So obviously it's just like a little lock one. So what you have to do is kind of wiggle it up and down until that little tab, the 3 tabs, release. And once you get that out, do the same on the other side, and this whole thing would just come off as a one assembly, just like that. Like I said, it's a whole one piece. What I usually do is put this in the bed of the truck, that way I don't accidentally kick it or damage it walking around and things like that. Next step will be taking off all the bolts that hold the headlight, and let's go ahead and do that. Okay, once you pull the headlights out, make sure you push this down while you're pulling the headlights out, because these things lock on the bottom, so it'll kind of give you a little bit of resistance if you don't put this down. What you have to do now is just twist off the old bulb location, which is right there. You just twist this off. Go ahead and unplug this. Just a little push tab. Along with this one, same goes to that one. Once you get that out, the whole headlight assembly is out. since we got the headlights out, I'll go ahead and put these LED kit. This is for the low and high beams, so that should give it a little bit more light output with these headlights. I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty easy. So if you want to do this, that's fine. If you don't, you can leave the halogens in the headlight assembly. But I would suggest getting one of these. Makes a big difference. Alright, this kit comes with the DRL harness. Once you take it out of the bag, that's what it would look like. You'll have these female connectors on both sides. This would be for the passenger side, and obviously that's for the driver. You'll have the little control box right here. You'll have battery positive, battery negative, and this will go to the DRL fuse, which I will show you afterwards. Or actually, it's an ignition source. But once you get all that ran, like I said, it's just plug and play battery connections. The way I do these is this little opening right here. If you insert it through this location, it'll come out. See how long my finger is? I would generally zip tie it to this ground wire. Like I said, zip tie here, and make sure you zip tie the other harness to here. That way it doesn't slap around. Once I get all that ran, I'll show you what they should look like, and let's go from there. Alright everyone, I got the harness ran and everything. From the beginning I was telling you to zip tie it to the ground harness or ground wire. It'll shoot down to this hole right here. See my finger? Zip tied to the headlight harness. Zip tied all along this harness right here. And it should come out on this side. To get the headlights off, or the headlight cover, obviously they twist off. Obviously open and close. So it just twists. Put that aside. They do have a locking tab. All you do is push down and push it in outward, so basically away from the tab. That one's already out, so you just push down and then pull this way. I'll do this one right here. Let me see if I can get it to focus up. So let me see. Once you push it down, kind of make it go towards up. A little hard to get this on. But as you can see, once you get that release on both sides, they just pop off. Move it out of the way. They can be a little bit of pain in the ass just due to the location. Once you get them out, they're both H7s. They just pop off. Put the LED on, and do the reverse process. Here's the LED conversion kit. See what they look like. Nice and metal, sturdy. Just goes the same way. Make sure to get the tabs to go in this way. Just kind of open it up and slide it in, and it'll lock on from this side. But don't worry, I'll show you what that looks like once it's all there. Makes it a little bit easier when you can see it. But let's go ahead and start prepping everything up and install these LEDs. For this step, this is kind of a little bit of time-consuming part, but the LED kit comes with a little heat or ballast, whatever you want to call it. What I did have to do is use the little lip of the assembly to hold it in. Obviously the LED itself is right there. It's already installed and held with the tabs. Same goes for the low beams. They twist on together, and this one plugs into the original harness. The little lip that I was talking about is this part right here. Just wrap around a zip tie to it and hold the harness from there, and that'll hold everything in, so you don't have to cut or do any modifications to the cover. And that's all you really have to do. So I finally got everything put in. As I mentioned before, that little lip, that's kind of what you use to hold the assembly in place. As you can see, it's not moving anywhere. Same goes to this one. And now you can place the covers back on without any interference, and then just make sure you test it before you put the whole truck together, just to make sure everything works. And that's it. So I ran into a little issue. I was getting ready to put the headlight assembly in, and I realized that the plug for the DRL was short. It stopped right about where my finger is, and the plug has to be a little bit just in this general area. So I ended up extended it, soldered it, loomed it, heat shrinked it, and things like that. Now it's plenty long now for it to reach the back of the headlight. I'll go ahead and start putting that back together, and can't wait to see what it looks like. Second headlight is finally done. This one went fairly pretty quick, just because I knew what to do already. Like I was saying, the little ballast that came with it, just zip tied to the plastic shroud or whatever that plastic piece is. Same goes on the low beam, but they are not moving anywhere. They're all locked in, zip tied in, and it's time to put this one together and mount it in the truck. So I had the headlights temporarily mounted in there. The only thing that's holding it right now is this little clip and like one 10mm bolt below, just to kind of see what it looks like. I did end up testing it already, the low beam, the high beam, the turn signals, all that thing, before I start bolting everything back on. But so far it is looking real good. I cannot wait to put everything back on and see what it looks like. Just a heads up, I do leave this on until I'm ready to pretty much, or whenever I'm done putting everything back together, just to kind of protect it from getting scratched. Because once it does get scratched, you will see it, and I know you will get annoyed looking at it. So if you can leave it there, fine. If you don't want to, that's fine as well, but it's completely up to you. But that's what they look like so far. So at this point, just go ahead and start putting everything back together. Same way as you're taking it off, just go in reverse. I already put all the bolts in place. I'll go ahead and start putting back the piece right here and then the grill, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like when it's all put back together. Alright, for the DRL harness, you will need to go to the engine compartment fuse box. You will be using number 36, which is this slot right here in front of this big 20. You will need one of these type of fuse with a 10 amp. I will actually need to go to the store and buy some, because I don't have a spare fuse, but it goes to this slot right here. So you can see no tapping involved. I did cut a little slot right here, that way the wire has somewhere to kind of rest on. I also did the same thing on the cover, and I'll show you what that looks like once I put everything back. Here's what it looks like. The notch is a little bit bigger, but that's better. That way it's not just resting on and bending all over the place. So it was going on to the fuse box as well. Got everything zip tied, so that nothing's gonna be flying around and things like that. But everything is done. That's what they look like. I will go ahead and start taking the tape off. That's the reason why I mentioned to keep that plastic cover. That way you don't end up scratching it and damaging it along the process of putting everything back. But overall, that's what they look like. It did make a big difference in the whole look of the truck. It looks a lot newer, a little bit more aggressive looking. Parking lights, headlights, turn signals, high beam,
Okay, use the unlock and lock feature. Unlock. Lock. Unlock. And then lights on. Looks real good.